All right, I want to get into this. Celtic City. Yeah. You and I have both been watching this series, and we're both caught up. So I believe it was episode 5 out of 9. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. And in the latest episode, it was really all Larry Bird. Like, I felt like in the last time we talked about this, it was introing Larry Bird.
Right.
The last few episodes have been Larry Bird heavy.
Yep.
So I want to start there and then transition into what else jumped out to me in this episode. I'm not going to lie. Can we get someone that works on this show or something, Ante? Yeah. This is so well done. Simmons did a great job. Bill Simmons did a tremendous job with this show.
Yeah.
I think what I like about it, and I know I'm jumping around here. I wanted to get to this, but what I liked about the latest episode was how he looked at every angle of being black in Boston.
Yeah.
Whether you played for the team, what was your perspective there? If you were a fan of the team as a black person in Boston or you grew up in Boston. Outsiders like myself, like you, Ante.
Yep.
Our look at the Celtics and the city from the outside looking in. I thought that was brilliant. But in terms of, I want to start with Bird because you didn't get a chance to watch Bird.
No.
I saw the tail end of Larry. And I felt like I was robbed I felt like I was robbed as a kid.
Yeah.
Because he was larger than life. Him and Magic both. I put them in the same bubble. You know, they were both larger than life. Where obviously in my household, both of my parents being huge sports fans. So as I was growing up, I was getting told tales, right? Man, these two went at it in college. Mm-hmm. These guys did all these all-star, all these championships, all this stuff, all these accolades. But I was more of the Jordan era in terms of my age group. I watched all of Jordan. But, you know, seeing the tail end of Larry, I just felt like I was always robbed because most of my memories of him was him laying on his stomach on that parquet floor because his back was hurting so bad. Then he would get in the game, splash threes. I saw him get buckets, but he was slower. He wasn't as athletic. He wasn't as dynamic. He wasn't as dominant and explosive. And then after I'd see him score, I don't know, I'm making this up, 16 points, he would go back and he would lay, not sit on the bench, he would lay on his belly on the floor because that's how bad his back was.
Yeah.
So anytime I get to watch docs or clips or anything of prime Larry, I'm reminded of stories my parents told me because the dude to this day is one of the all-time greatest basketball players ever. Like if the aliens come down, which could happen any day now, the way things are going, you're sending Larry. You're sending, like, there's certain players you're sending and be like, this is what basketball is. Yeah. Larry's one of them. It is. I am always amazed at watching just how dominant Larry was when he was cooking, Tay.
Yeah, you know, and the thing about it is, too, what I love about what this has shown us is, like, it's not just like, oh, Larry was perfect. Right. It shows us the duality of a man.
Facts.
You know, sometimes there was guys that were like, you know, hey, I didn't like Larry, you know what I mean? Or wasn't the best. They were saying he wasn't the best of friends with McHale. And it's like, whenever you hear about those stories, it's like, oh, Bird and McHale. They were, you know, Danny Ainge. It was all the best of times, blah, blah, blah. Everybody loved each other and it was hunky-dory. But, you know, when watching this doc, I realized, like, you know, even them sometimes were like, all right, Larry, like, come on, bro, because he was always just such a competitor. It even showed in the fact that McHale went out and broke the Celtics record for points in the game, and Larry's telling them, like, hey, bro, stay in the game because I'm about to go get that soon. Like, you better stay. And then 9 days later, Travis, he goes out and breaks the record.
Yeah.
Like, this dude was a competitor to the point where he was beating up Julius Erving.
Yeah.
Came back 3-1. He told Parrish, like, hey, bro, like, I don't really care if you're here. I'm going to win anyways because I'm just that great. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And then he even, with the McHale stuff, was like, yeah, bro, you better score because I'm about to go break it. You always heard the stories about him being competitive with other people.
That's right.
But now we're getting the stories, at least for me, for the first time, about how he was competitive with even his own teammates and how he challenged them. And it also is a testament to why the Celtics were so great because he held everybody to such a standard as he held himself.
Excellent point. It's one of the reasons why I love you. I'm not even kidding. Like, we joke, but I'm always like, bro, you are so petty. I think it's It's just how great athletes are wired. I'm not comparing you to Larry,
Right, no.
but I'm saying,
Of course not.
you had points in your basketball career. You were dominant in high school. You were dominant, right? So I just think it speaks to that mentality of, listen, I'm the best one out on this floor. There's famous stories of Larry showing up to the All-Star game 3-point contest and being like, which one of you MFers is coming in second?
Right.
So that's just how you're wired. Now, here's where I want to go with Larry being an outsider, okay? Yeah. So I told you the kid story of Larry. Yep. And watching this, Celtic City's fantastic to get all that, kind of fill in those blanks that I wasn't around to see with Larry, or I was too young to really appreciate.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. When I moved here, I don't know if you've had this experience or not, but when I moved here and I started working with and talking to Boston natives, I was amazed at how regular and how normal it is that everyone just knew, yeah, Larry used to get hammered. And he would go to these bars and get wasted.
Yeah.
And, like, I learned that Boston protected him in a sense of, I heard countless stories of people telling me, yeah, there's legends of, like, they would carry Larry out of bars.
Yeah.
Because he had just drank himself to a stupor. So in Celtic City, it was a playoff. I can't remember if it was. I think it was it a finals or I don't remember. It was a playoff series.
Yeah.
Where his hand was jacked up.
Yeah.
From allegedly getting in a bar fight, and he just wasn't the same. Like he couldn't score the same. He couldn't shoot the same.
Yeah.
I 1,000% believe that was the norm. I think they just chose one story.
Right.
But when I moved here and heard all the Larry was wasted stories, I was shocked because as an outsider, that never reached us. Like, we looked at Boston and Larry Bird as this iconic guy, which he is, but I didn't know the demons. I didn't know some of the things that were going on with him in his personal life.
Yeah.
Signs of the time, there was no social media.
Right.
Okay, Larry now would have been all over TMZ every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But hearing that story in Celtic City almost like connected the dots of, oh, once I got to Boston, I heard all this stuff. It must be true.
Yeah. You know what I also loved about the last episode is just like you can't tell the Celtics story without bringing up the Lakers, and like we finally just now getting into the Lakers talk.
Yep.
And you know, obviously I'm from Los Angeles, but this is not what this is about. It's about the fact that like, why is a lot of these great Celtics players like, you know, hating the Celtics growing up? You have Paul Pierce. Even Tatum said, you know, on the episode, like how much he hated the Celtics growing up as a kid. And even Parrish talked about how he didn't want to come here, you know, from San Francisco or wherever, you know, to be, you know, with the Celtics and a lot of that stuff. And also just as a whole, you know, the duality between the two teams, between the Celtics and the Lakers. Like literally the old Boston Garden had Newports on top of the stadium.
And it was hot too.
It was hot and all this other stuff. And then you have the fabulous Forum, and you got you know, the club. Everybody's heard about the club underneath the Forum that everybody used to go to after the games. And you had all these stars and celebrities at the games. And then you go from that to people, you know, calling people, you know, rude names. I won't say them on here, but you know, we heard James Worthy talk about the names that he was called and all this other stuff. And Bill Shaughnessy also talks about, you know, some of the names that he knows that people have, you know, told him that he's been called and all this other stuff.
Dan Shaughnessy.
Dan, excuse me.
No, listen, I think this is why I say it's the best show on TV. That part of it was so impressive to me, how they told multi views of that side of the story.
Right.
I thought it was fascinating to get a black player perspective, not only from the Celtics but from other teams.
Right.
I thought it was genius to get people, black folks who grew up here, and how they sort of had to navigate their love.
Right.
Michael Bivens, who's family to Nesson.
Right.
And family to Hold My Banner.
Yep.
You know, they talk about how the New Edition guys, when they were coming up with a music video, they used the Lakers and Magic Johnson because at that time the Celtics did not connect with the black culture.
Right.